If you are listening to great music, and if you are comparing it with another great musician, you are not actually listening to that particular music. So, similarly, if one is actually listening with one's heart, that doesn't mean sentimentality. It doesn't mean kind of emotional chaos, but actually listening. And as two friends are listening to each other, in that quality of listening, they're asking each other, is it possible for a brain, which is the center of our life, not to be wounded, not to have any scratch, and that demands that we inquire into the nature of conflict. Why human beings, from the beginning of time, 1,000,000 years and more or less, have lived with conflict. As we all live in conflict, we all live in conflict. There is no doubt about that. It's a fact. And we are asking, why do human beings put up with conflict? Not only the external conflict as war, as competition with another, as imitation, conformity, and all the pressures, political pressure, newspaper pressures, the family pressure, and so on. These pressures also damage the brain. It's a fact. Anything that's under pressure must inevitably either escape from the pleasure, from the pressure, and that escape becomes a means of conflict, or we are being programmed all the time, propaganda of newspapers, magazines, and so on. All these activities obviously bring about conflict. Now, can the brain be free of all conflict? This is a very serious question. Conflict breeds antagonism. Conflict breeds self-centeredness. It's the nature of selfishness. And we human beings are terribly selfish, self-interest. And that breeds conflict. When each one of us is concerned with ourselves, our own fulfillment, our own ambitions, and so on, that builds up slowly various forms of contradiction, conflict, ultimately war. All these are obvious facts. And we are asking, whether it is possible for the brain to be completely healthy, rational, sane, logical, because it is only then that it can function tremendously and fully. Is it possible to live a life in the modern world without conflict? You might say that it's impossible. If you are not competitive, if you are not aggressive, if you are not becoming number one, numero uno, that's called in Europe, that means number one. If you are not doing that, if you are doing that, you must inevitably live in conflict. And you say to yourself, I can't do that. I have to compete in my business. I have to compete in my examinations, and so on. We are nurtured, trained to compete, which becomes aggressiveness. You must be aggressive in business, otherwise you don't get business, and so on, so on, so on. Do we understand this, all this, verbally? Because we both are speaking English. Do we understand this verbally, which becomes then an idea, a concept, a theory? Or do you see the fact of it? You understand me? There is a vast difference between fact and idea of the fact. The idea of the fact and fact itself, right? The idea is the gramophone, the idea, microphone. But the idea is not the actual instrument in front of the speaker. Right? So there is a fact and the idea of the fact.